Erik Jones says he'd like to have a contract done with petty GMS Motorsports in the foreseeable future. And Marcus Ericsson says he is potentially interested in racing in NASCAR. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to go ahead and start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump into those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Mason Maggio's 2022 HMY Yacht Sales scheme that we received this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Honestly, I think this paint scheme's okay in my opinion. It is cool that Mason Maggio is making his Camp World Truck Series debut. Paint scheme's okay in my opinion. Hopefully we'll see a good one from Mason Maggio this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kevin Harvick's 2022 Busch Light Polite scheme that we received this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Honestly, I think this paint scheme looks really solid in my honest opinion. And one thing I love about Busch is their activation, the things they do around the Busch, and Busch does a really good job around it. So I think it looks pretty solid. Looking forward to seeing the racetrack this weekend at Worldwide Technology. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jack Wood's 2022 Two Friends Golf scheme that received this weekend, and I think a couple of the races this season. I think this paint scheme looks pretty decent in my opinion. I love the color variations that they have on it. It's great to see that the new sponsor is working with Jack Wood this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Harrison Burton's 2022 DAV scheme that we received this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Honestly, I think this paint scheme does look pretty decent in my opinion. I love it. They're changing up for Harrison Burton. I love different color variations, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at WWT. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chris Buescher's 2022 Acronis scheme that received this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. I love this paint scheme. Love that Acronis is coming on. They've changed it up a little bit from the past, so I think it does look pretty solid, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at WWT. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Andy Lally 2022 Clear Crypto scheme that received this weekend at Portland. Overall, I think this paint scheme does look pretty solid. Love the colors on it, and it's great to see that Andy Lally has a different sponsor working with them this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Gibbs' 2022 He Gets Us scheme that received this weekend at Portland and later this year at New Hampshire. Kind of surprised that to bring the scheme out to Portland, kind of a different area to bring it out to considering we know about Portland, but overall I think the paint scheme actually looks really solid. A Christian sponsor, pretty solid paint scheme in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Parker Chase's 2022 Tally scheme that will receive this weekend at Portland Raceway, and I think maybe in another race later down the road. Honestly, really cool that Tally's still partnering up with Parker Chase. I believe they've been sponsoring when he's been racing ARCA for Venturini Motorsports. So good to see they're jumping on Parker Chase. I'm excited to see on the racetrack here at Portland. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Zane Smith's 2022 ARMA scheme that will receive this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. I absolutely love it, and basically it's the color variation used for the ARMA cars. Of course, I'm kind of in the RC biz, so I kind of know what these look like, and honestly, they did an amazing job on this. I'm definitely looking forward to see it. As a guy who's been in the RC world and knows about it, I think it's amazing ARMA sponsoring Zane Smith, and it looks really awesome, in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Spencer Boyd's 2022 Hans Wyman scheme that we'll see this weekend at WWT. Very interesting colors, in my opinion. I think Hans, of course, is St. Louis-based company, which, of course, is Spencer Boyd's home race. Honestly, I think it looks decent. Excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at Worldwide Technology. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Stephen Parsons' 2022 Lamphere scheme that received this weekend at Portland Raceway. Different colors for sure, no doubt about it, and it's great to see Stephen Parsons has a new sponsor work with him this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is J.J. Lee's 2022 Minutemen Coffee Co. scheme that received this weekend in the Xfinity Series race at Portland. Really awesome that J.J. Lee has a new sponsor. Not as big fan of the scheme look in my opinion, but I think having more different sponsor variation and branding is good in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Eric Roll's 2022 Bill Ford Proud scheme that received this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. I absolutely love this paint scheme. This is one of my favorite paint schemes I've seen so far this year. The blue and the white absolutely contrast very well. Like the blue and the purple looks really awesome. It looks amazing, and I'm absolutely excited to see on the racetrack. I'm at the track this weekend at Worldwide Technology. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kyle Busch's 2022 Snickers scheme that debuts this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Holy crap, I absolutely love this paint scheme. Everything about it looks amazing. It's going to be awesome to see on the racetrack. I'm definitely going to get pictures of that for sure. I love it, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at Worldwide Technology. Next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Dillon's 2022 Chevy Military Appreciation Scheme that we're going to see this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Overall, I think it does look really, really solid. I think they did a great job, and overall, they've basically kind of similar to the Chevy schemes they've had in the past, but I think it looks pretty solid, and I'm looking forward to see on the racetrack this weekend at Worldwide Technology. And the last paint scheme we are taking a look at is Joe Graf Jr.'s 2022 bucked up buckshot scheme that we'll see this weekend at Portland Raceway. One thing I will say about Joe Graf Jr. and the buckshot schemes is I love the fact that they've changed them up every single time. It's not been the same scheme every time, so that's one thing that is overall very positive. When you can change it up, I think it looks great, and I think this one looks really, really good in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Camping World. As it was revealed, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday morning, that Camping World is going to be returning as a primary sponsor for the Asterix for their second season. Camping World was the entitlement sponsor of the Asterix last year, and once again, they're returning for a second year. Camping World, of course, we have not been really seeing as much around Camping World this year in NASCAR and other sports as they have. I'm not really getting into, I don't know exactly why there have been issues around that, but I think it's great to see that Camping World is continuing to be partnered up with the Asterix. I think it's great for the sport, and I'm happy to see that Camping World is going to continue working with the Asterix. I think continue to work with the Asterix is a great thing overall. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about more about the Coca-Cola 600. So, according to Joseph Strigley, he reported this on Monday evening that only 20 cars finished the Coca-Cola 600. That is the fewest to finish a non-super speedway race since Dover in 1991. I believe in August of 1991. This is the last time they had that few cars finish a race at a NASCAR race on a non-super speedway. That's absolutely incredible. And yes, that doesn't qualify for how good or bad the race was. The race was absolutely amazing, the best race of the year. And the Coke 600 was meant for a race to be about attrition. That's one thing the Coke 600 generally has forgotten over the last few years, is a lack of attrition and a lack of drivers caring. When Denny Hamlin won that race, you could tell he really, really was into it and was very, very happy to win that. So, yes, you basically, of course, absolutely had a lot of cautions, but there's nothing wrong with having a lot of yellows. And some, again, there's a lot of cautions. You don't want to overburden them, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that we saw a lot of attrition and a lot of exciting racing. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Erik Jones. As Erik Jones is going to run 6 super late model races in the 2022 season for WWT Motorsports. I believe his first race will be on June 8th, so a week from today, he'll be racing, I think, up in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, and a race for 5 other more races for WWT Motorsports. It's really awesome. Erik Jones is going to do super late models. Of course, Erik Jones has won some big super late model races, including the Snowball Derby, which is where he was discovered by Kyle Busch. I think Erik Jones going to run more of those races is amazing, and I'm excited to see that Erik Jones will be going to be running some more super late model races. I think it's absolutely awesome, and it's really, really cool that he's doing that, to be honest with you. And now we're going into on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Jeff Gluck poll from the Coca-Cola 600. And once again, like many of the Jeff Gluck polls, many people said yes. According to his poll, Jeff Gluck's poll had a 90.6% of people that said yes. That, I believe, is the 4th race this year that has reached over the 90% threshold. And one thing that is basically consistent and trending is the intermediate races have all been ranked really, really high this year. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that the intermediate racing this year has been absolutely amazing. So it's not a major surprise that we've seen some really awesome racing, and it's not a major surprise that people are tuning into more races there. I think it's awesome, and the Jeff Gluck poll continues to have some big numbers. I think he had 35,000 people who voted, which I think is one of the highest lately voted Jeff Gluck polls ever. So I think it's amazing and exciting to see that the polls continue to get high numbers. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about the Gateway Truck Race. Now, there have been some changes to the stage lengths for the Truck Series race. So, Stage 1 is going to end on lap 35, Stage 2 is going to end on lap 70, and the final stage is going to be 90 laps, and it will go to lap 160. I believe the initial was 55, 55, and 60. I think that was the initial numbers. I don't exactly remember, but I think it was 50, 50, and 60 were the original numbers. I think one of the reasons they want a very long stage number 3. Now, this race, of course, will have live pit stops, as the Cup Series is going to be there. I think these are pretty good lengths, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get a green flag pit stop in the Truck Series. But how the Truck Series has raced, I wouldn't be entirely shocked if we don't get green flag pit stops. But overall, I think it's good to see the Truck Series lengths have increased, and I think it's amazing to see that they did that. I think it'll create better racing, and I think fans overall will be much happier about that. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Ben Rhodes. As it was revealed this morning that Ben Rhodes is going to practice and qualify the number 16 College Cup Series car for AJ Allmendinger at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Now, the reason is because while, of course, you have the Cup Series and Truck Series race at Worldwide Technology Raceway, you also have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Portland, and AJ is committed to both of those races. Now, all three drivers would have been in the same position because all three drivers who drive for Colleagues, the 16 College Cup car, drive an Xfinity Series on a full-time basis. I think Ben Rhodes is an interesting case because he is a Toyota driver. However, Ben Rhodes has driven for Chevy in the NASCAR Cup Series. In fact, his debut in the Cup Series came with Spire Motorsports, which, of course, is a Chevy-based team. So it is not really a major surprise that they decided to bring Ben Rhodes in there. I think Ben Rhodes will actually do a really incredible job qualifying the car. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves to be moving up in the future, and I'm glad to see that Ben Rhodes is getting a really cool opportunity to drive in that car. I think it's amazing to see that he'll be driving, at least for the practice and qualifying sessions. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Worldwide Technology Raceway once again. As we got some really good news around Worldwide Technology Raceway, as it was officially revealed this morning that it has officially sold out for Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race, including 57,000 grandstand seats, 1,200 campsite seats, and all the dozen suites that are in that track have officially sold out. This event is going to be the most people that has ever attended a race at Worldwide Technology Raceway, and they're expecting a lot more than 57,000 to be at the race as well. I'm, of course, going to be there, and I can tell you this is huge for the St. Louis area, a massive market. They have been promoting the hell out of this event, and I'm really excited to be there with so many of people that are fans of this sport and people going to this race. It's just incredible that Worldwide Technology Raceway has this many people that are going to be there. For them to have a sellout crowd, this is the fourth race, I believe, that has sold out in 2022 in the Cup Series. I believe Phoenix Spring, the Daytona 500, and the Coke 600 are the other three races that have sold out this year. So I think it's incredible and amazing, and I'm very happy to see that they have sold out. I think, again, it's huge for the sport, and I'm glad to see that they have sold out for this weekend. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Hendrick Motorsports. As Hendrick Motorsports has made some big personal moves that are huge for the team. So, Jeff Andrews, who was, I believe, the GM of the organization, has been promoted to team president. And Marshall Carlson is going to be moved to president of the Hendrick companies. Now, let's first talk about Jeff Andrews. Jeff Andrews has been the GM of Hendrick Motorsports for quite a few years now. Has been part of a lot of the executive moves that have been really taking place. And I think Jeff Andrews is absolutely the perfect person for the job. He's been around for a very long time with the company. He absolutely deserves the promotion. Same thing for Marshall Carlson. Marshall Carlson's been with Hendrick for a very long time, and I think he'll be good for the company as well. I think these are some really awesome personal moves that they're making. I think it'll be overall really good, and I'm excited to see that Hendrick has made some big personal moves. I think Jeff Andrews will do a great job as a president, and I think Hendrick is really setting their company up for a very bright future. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about suspensions and reinstatements. Now, NASCAR released their penalty report this past weekend, and there have been some changes that have happened. So Michael Adair, who is the hauler driver for Petty GMS Motorsports, and Case Callenbeck, who is basically the crew chief for the 6 car for Ryan Vargas, which we'll get to him here in the near future, have been suspended indefinitely by NASCAR. Meanwhile, Jason Houttailing, who was originally the crew chief for the 34 car for Jesse Wuji Motorsports, has been reinstated back into the sport. It's unclear exactly what they did, but those two have been suspended. Of course, Case Callenbeck, who I think has done a really good job as a crew chief. Again, I don't know if it's a drug policy or exactly what he did to get suspended, but whatever he did, hopefully he gets situated so he can come back in the future. It's a shame that's what's happened, but it is what it is. And again, you do have to follow the rules and don't get suspended by NASCAR because it's a bad thing overall for you. And those are suspensions and reinstatements that have happened here this week. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Blake Lothian. As Blake Lothian is going to drive the 43 for Rayan Brothers Racing this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Blake Lothian has already made his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Martinsville, where I believe he finished in the back. I think he crashed out of the event or finished many laps in his Truck Series debut. But I think it's a really cool opportunity for Blake. Blake, I believe, has some, I don't know if he has any experience or not, at Worldwide Technology Raceway, but I think he has a lot of short track experience, which this track, of course, kind of races like a short track. So I think it makes a ton of sense to bring a guy like Blake Lothia in. I hope he does really, really well, and good to see that he's back in the Truck Series with this team. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Justin Carroll. As Justin Carroll is going to drive the 90 for Terry Carroll Motorsports this weekend at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Now, of course, he already had tried to make his first ever NASCAR Camp World Truck Series start earlier this year, but unfortunately, due to the fact that they got rained out, he was not able to attempt to qualify. This time, he will be able to attempt to qualify. Ultimately, if he can make the show, because there's, I think, 3 trucks that are going to be going home. If he can make the show, I think that'll be great. I hope he makes the show because I think Justin Carroll being in the series would be amazing. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Matt Jaskol. As Matt Jaskol is going to drive the 13 for MBM Motorsports this weekend at Portland. I believe that this will be Matt Jaskol's first start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year and first start of MBM Motorsports in 2022. Matt Jaskol was supposed to run the full season with Glory to God Racing, but he was fired a few races into the year. In fact, I believe he was fired during the Martinsville weekend. It was no longer able to drive for the team. So he's joining the 13 for MBM Motorsports. Matt Jaskol, I'm not sure how he's going to do. I know he has some road course experience. He's had some starts last year in Xfinity. I hope he does really, really well, so I think it'd be great for the sport if Matt Jaskol can do really, really well this weekend. And now we're going to jump to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Spencer Pumpelly. As Spencer Pumpelly is going to drive the 08 for SS Greenlight Racing this weekend at Portland. This will be Spencer's first start of the 2022 season, but this will not be his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series start, as Spencer Pumpelly has already driven in the Xfinity Series and drive the 6 for JD Motorsports last season. I think Spencer's got a lot of talent. I think he'll do pretty well with the team. I think he'll actually do better than he did with JD Motorsports. I think he'll qualify in the show. I think that car is going to be more capable of being competitive than we've seen drivers in the past. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Scott Heckert. As Scott Heckert is going to drive the 5 for BJ McLeod Motorsports this weekend at Portland. This will be Scott's second start of the year, as I believe his first start already came at Circuit of the Americas. Scott Heckert, of course, a driver who has actually won when it used to be called the KM Pro East Series. He won some races on road course over there and nearly won the championship over there. Scott, I think, is someone that's going to surprise a lot of people this weekend, especially if he can make the show. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's very, very capable of getting things done. And I think he will have a very strong run this weekend. I'm not expecting a win out of him this weekend, but I think if he makes the show, he will be a surprise and potentially could get a top 10 this weekend. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about this weekend with Ryan Vargas and Greg Galding, as there has been a driver swap for this weekend. So, Ryan Vargas, who usually drives the 6 car this weekend, he is going to drive the 47 for Mike Harmon Racing, meaning that he will have to most likely qualify into the show. Greg Galding, who has not made a lot of starts with Mike Harmon Racing, but has driven for Mike Harmon Racing this year, is going to drive the 6 car for JD Motorsports. For a lot of people wondering, this is just a business decision. It's expected more than likely that Ryan is going to be back in the 6th car more likely next week. I think you're looking at it from a road course experience. Ryan does not have a ton of experience on road courses. Greg Galding actually does. And Greg Galding has actually been somewhat competitive on road courses. So it really is not a major surprise and a shock to me that he's getting starts right there. It was a business decision. It's nothing really bad blood between the teams. It was just a business decision overall. And just sometimes you're going to have to make business decisions, even if it's controversial. Sometimes you're going to have to make some business decisions that are going to happen. Even if you don't like them, you have to sometimes make those business decisions that are really important for the team to keep your team in the running. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Argentina. As there was reported by Marshall Pruitt yesterday that Argentina is apparently eyeing an IndyCar race. I'm not entirely sure if Argentina has ever hosted an IndyCar race before. I know Brazil's hosted IndyCar races in the past. I know Formula 1 has. I know Formula 1 has hosted F1 races there. But I'm not entirely sure if they've hosted races in Argentina. Now, more than likely, it would be a street race if they're going to run a race in Argentina. It would most likely be in the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires. I may be wrong how I pronounce that, but basically, it would more likely be in Buenos Aires if they were going to host one. This is kind of a shock to me, but you look at IndyCar, and of course, they're mostly an American-based sport. They do have one race up in Toronto this year, which, of course, there were a lot of questions around that until this year. They're actually going to have the race in Toronto this year. And I think the IndyCar wants to expand to different countries, which you have to give a lot of respect to that. They're trying to do that. I think expanding to different countries is really, really important. The fact that they're wanting to do that, I do have to give them props, and I hope it does happen. Again, if the money comes through, it is what it is. I hope it happens, but we'll have to wait and see if it does. It'd be cool if they can expand, and we'll see if they do end up going to Argentina in the future. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Miami F1. Now, of course, a couple weeks ago was the Miami Grand Prix for Formula 1, but they're already discussing about the future and what this event could be in the near future. And according to Adam Stern, who reports this yesterday, he says that F1 is already considering multiple options for support series races for 2023. And it's thought that IMSA could be a possibility in the coming years to race there. And he also notes that NASCAR executives, who of course own the IMSA series, were actually at the event. This is actually kind of a crazy story if IMSA could join Formula 1. I do not believe that we've really ever seen the other Formula 1 and IMSA really combined together. When you think of Formula 1 in combinations, you think more than likely IndyCar, maybe some of the sports cars, but never have seen IMSA really a lot of times partner up with Formula 1, because when you think of also sports cars, they generally partner up with the IndyCar weekends. Look at Long Beach Grand Prix. They've partnered up with them during the Long Beach weekend. I think, though, that they are looking toward the future right now, and they're trying to figure out how to make this event a massive, massive event. Now, of course, one thing I really hope is that eventually they do get some of those costs down. I think the costs for those events are absolutely ridiculous. I think that's one thing that definitely does need to change. But I will say the fact that they're already trying to look at the future, I think is a huge thing. And I would love to see them try out and try to get some more support series in there, especially IMSA. I think that would be great for the sport, and maybe we'll see in the future. Again, we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. But again, they're trying to look at the future. You can't blame them, and honestly, I think it'd be great for the sport if they can think about the future and try to make some moves right there. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Parker Kligerman. As Parker Kligerman is going to be driving the 15 for Rickware Racing this weekend at WWT Raceway. Parker Kligerman, of course, who currently competes in the Truck Series most of the time for Hendrick Motorsports and drives the majority season for them, and works in NASCAR and NBC and all the NBC providers, not just with them, but also IndyCar and MotoGP. Parker Kligerman will be making his first start of 2022, as his last time he raced, of course, was earlier last year at Kansas in the fall, where he had an impressive top 20 run and was nearly running in the top 10. I think Parker Kligerman is going to surprise a lot of people this weekend. And I'm really excited about this, because I think Parker is going to contend for a top 15. I think he's going to perform better than Ryan Preece did in the car, and Ryan Preece was really impressive at Dover. I think Parker Kligerman is going to contend for a top 15. I know that's really high expectations for a guy like Parker Kligerman, but the guy is out from equipment. He took a Gaunt Brothers racing car that ran in the back and was running top 15 at Kansas. And I think he's capable of getting it done. Now, one thing to note is that he's never had any experience at this track. Of course, he did attempt to qualify in 2010, but failed to qualify. I think Parker Kligerman is going to surprise a lot of people this weekend. I think it will be huge if he can have a great run. I want to see him make the field. Well, he's going to make the field, but I want to see him do well. I think it'd be amazing. And I'm glad to see that Parker Kligerman is going to drive the 15 for Rickware Racing this weekend at WWT Raceway. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about new entrants and going into Formula 1 when it comes to new entries for manufacturers. Now, Adam Stern reported about this and talked about this, and it basically kind of took a quote from Christian Horner from the article that he posted. And Christian Horner says he doesn't see any new entrants getting into F1 until 2026, so taking on an existing franchise would be the only way in for a new party until then. Now, of course, we're talking about this. We already talked about this on the channel, I think, a couple weeks ago. But basically, there's new manufacturers that are wanting to come into the sport. Those two being Porsche and Audi. Now, Audi has had to try to get a conversation with McLaren, trying to partner up with them. But it does not look like they're going to partner up with McLaren. So they're looking to go to someone else like an AlphaTauri, perhaps, or other organizations and work with them, like maybe Alfa Romeo, one of those organizations they're trying to get in contact. You also have Porsche, and Porsche is trying to get in contact with Red Bull, which this is more than likely going to happen than Audi working with McLaren. But you think about new manufacturers as well. And the reason that we're talking about this is because they really don't want to increase the entries to the field. Now, we know that Andretti is trying to get in Formula 1. They want to increase there, and they want to get into Formula 1. The big problem is, though, is that right now you have so many, you basically have these teams, these higher-up teams especially, with the major payouts that don't really want to pay that much. And I can't entirely blame them, to be honest. I can't really entirely blame them. But I think having new entries in the sport would be really, really awesome. So, in all honesty, in all seriousness, I kind of hope it happens. That they do go to Red Bull for Porsche. So I think new manufacturers and the companies in the sport would be great. But again, talking about new manufacturers coming in, and you won't have more entries in the field probably at least for a few more years. So I'm not sure if even Andretti's team will come in the future. But I think it's great to see that they're trying to expand and go to different manufacturers, especially with Porsche. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Ally. Now, there was a video that came out from the Ally space, and someone pointed this out about two major things. One is a Mark Martin announcement, and the other is a potential North Wilkesboro announcement. Now, I kind of want to say this about the Mark Martin announcement first. I don't think that Mark Martin announcement has anything to do with North Wilkesboro. My theory and assumption is that has to do with the throwback that Alex Bowman ran. Of course, Alex Bowman ran a Mark Martin Valvoline throwback, which I think was throwback to his 1993 colors. So I don't think that has anything to do. But that North Wilkesboro announcement is really, really interesting. Now, of course, in the near future, we're going to be seeing the Nashville scheme that Alex Bowman's going to run. In fact, I think that's going to be coming here in the next week or so. That's going to be showing up. But I do think overall that they're already talking, maybe a North Wilkesboro announcement would be amazing. And maybe they're partnering up with North Wilkesboro perhaps and be a major title branding for the track. I wouldn't mind it. Honestly, I think it'd be really, really awesome if they could become the title branding for the track. I think it'd be great. And honestly, if they do become the title branding, it'd be awesome. But if they're truly looking to do something, if Ally's trying to truly look to do something in North Wilkesboro, I'm absolutely for that. And honestly, I would be welcoming them with open arms to the North Wilkesboro area. I think it'd be awesome. I'm glad to see we're trying to look at the future. I think Ally work with them would be great. And honestly, if it does happen, it is what it is. But I think it would be absolutely amazing, to be honest with you. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jimmie Johnson. Now, of course, every year after Indy 500, they always give out the Rookie of the Year. And generally, the guy who's won the Rookie of the Year, or the female that's won the Rookie of the Year, has been the highest finishing driver usually in the race, right? Well, very rare cases, you have a situation where you have a very popular driver who ends up winning the Rookie of the Year and causing a lot of controversy. You would think the guy that would have won would be the highest finisher. The Rookie of the Year winner was Jimmie Johnson. Now, I want to say something about this. Number one, I love Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson was my favorite drivers, and one of the big reasons why I've been loving IndyCar a lot more. Jimmie Johnson got me more in IndyCar. But here's my problem, and Jimmie Johnson even shocked me. Why did Jimmie Johnson get the Rookie of the Year when Dave Malukas and Kyle Kirkwood finished the race, by the way, and Dave Malukas had a really impressive Indianapolis 500? Ramon Grosjean deserves more because he actually had better qualifying. And you look at the criteria they have, and it's like, okay, maybe you can look at that criteria. But to me, why did Jimmie Johnson get the Rookie of the Year honors when he didn't even finish the race? If he would have finished the race, at least, then maybe I can understand. I don't think there'd be as much backlash. In my opinion, if you're going to get the Rookie of the Year honors, you got to finish the race. If you're the highest finishing rookie, that's understandable. But at the same token, at the same time, give the Rookie of the Year honors for the Indy 500. Give it to the guy who finished highest in the race. Yes, Jimmie Johnson did have a big impact. There's no doubt about that. His impact on the sport and how he handled himself during the weeks was great. Don't get me wrong. But I think when it comes to the Indy 500, you should have to finish. You at least got to finish the race. You know what I mean? That's kind of irritating. It's kind of frustrating. The guy that got the Rookie of the Year didn't even finish the race. And I think if you're going to talk about this, you need to finish the race. I know people disagree with me on it, and that's perfectly fine and understandable. But I think if we're going to start giving out the Rookie of the Year honors going forward, at least finish the race. That's just my honest opinion on that. Congrats, Jimmy, on winning the Rookie of the Year honors. But in my honest opinion, Jimmie Johnson should not have won it, and Dave Malukas should have been your Rookie of the Year. Dave Malukas got robbed, and it's not the first time that they've got robbed. I thought it was only 2 times. I found out yesterday that it was 3 times that Dale Coyne Racing's been screwed out of winning the Rookie of the Year. They should have won the Rookie of the Year all those years. I don't agree with all the awards, in my opinion. And now we're going into the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kenny Wallace. As Fox Sports, of course, reported, the 2 people that are going to be mainly in the booth for the final 2 races, Michael Waltrip will be at Gateway this weekend, which I'm going to be there, so I don't have to hear that. And Tony Stewart's going to be in the booth at Sonoma. One thing I did not mention, though, is that Kenny Wallace is actually going to be joining the Fox Sports booth in Stage 2 at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Now, Kenny Wallace, of course, who actually used to work for Fox Sports for a long time ago, I think up till about 2015 or 2016, he worked for Fox Sports. And Kenny Wallace, of course, has some booth experience in the past. He actually did some Truck Series commentary back in 2004 and 2005, which was really, really funny and brought a lot of insight as well. Kenny Wallace, of course, I think is really got a great personality. I think he'll do a really awesome job in the booth and has a lot of that experience, which will really, really come into play. I think having him in the booth for the Stage 2, especially, of course, this is being his hometown race, so I think he's going to be really excited about it. I know a lot of fans are really excited that Kenny Wallace is going to be in the Fox Sports booth, and theoretically, like I said, having Kenny Wallace in the Fox Sports booth, at least for Stage 2, at least I think that'll save the broadcast for this weekend as a whole, considering I don't think a lot of people are really excited about it. But, again, I love Kenny Wallace. Kenny Wallace has not been really involved in the sport as much, but we know that he's really been huge on this event. He's really hyped up about it, and I cannot wait to, and I'm going to see if I can get to talk to him or not at the track. If I do see him, I'll try to contact him. But I think it'd be really, really awesome and amazing. I'm glad he's going to be joining the Fox Sports booth in Stage number 2, and I'm excited to see that he will be there, and I think he'll basically be able to save the broadcast, because I think Michael Waltrip, I love Michael Waltrip, don't get me wrong, he's not been the greatest commentator. Clint Boyer's all over the place. I feel for Mike Joy, but in Stage number 2, I think Kenny Wallace would do a solid job, and I'm glad to see that he's at least joining the Fox Sports booth, and I think create a lot of entitlement and excitement around the event, as he's not shy to show his opinion. I think he'll do a really good job in the Fox Sports booth this weekend, in my honest opinion. And now we're going into on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Kirkwood. As expected, Kyle Kirkwood is going to be moving away from AJ Foyt Racing, and he's going to be joining Andretti Autosport in 2023, driving the number 27 car. Kyle Kirkwood was actually initially planned to be going to Andretti Autosport in 2022, but due to the legend allotment that they have for IndyCar, he was not allowed to join them this year because they had too many cars, and at the time we thought Colton Herta was going to go to Formula 1, but he is provided to, of course, driving full-time in the 14 for AJ Foyt Racing. Kyle Kirkwood going to Andretti is a no-brainer. Kyle Kirkwood is a very, very talented driver who I think has shown a lot of promise so far. Yes, he's definitely made a lot of mistakes this year so far in the 2022 season, but that's something that a rookie's going to do. And when he doesn't make mistakes, he makes some of the most impressive moves. And I've been really high on Kyle Kirkwood for a very, very long time, because that guy is going to be a champion in IndyCar. And I think that you're going to have a really strong combination this upcoming season. You have Kyle Kirkwood, Romain Grosjean, you're of course going to have Colton Herta, who it's unclear after this or what he'll be doing or not, and of course you're going to have a really strong combination of teams. The big question, though, is what happens to Alexander Rossi. Alexander Rossi is no longer going to be driving for Andretti Autosport. Now, a lot of people were wondering, where is he going to go after the season? Now, a lot of you that are worried about him, do not worry. Right now, it's expected, and it's probably going to be announced this weekend. There's a big announcement coming this weekend from Detroit that they're going to be announcing, I believe, that he is actually going to be moving over to Arrow McLaren SP. Now, currently at the moment, there are a lot of rumors, speculation around there. Look, that Arrow McLaren SP is looking to expand to a 3-car team. Pat O'Ward, of course, we know, will be back with Arrow McLaren SP through 2025. They're saying that it potentially could be Rinus VeeKay who's getting in one of those rides, and Alexander Rossi, which I think Alexander Rossi, we know he's been growing frustrated at the Andretti Autosport, and he wants to go to a team where he honestly can be a little more competitive. I think Alexander Rossi's shown a lot more this year than we've seen in the last couple years. I know that Alexander Rossi really hasn't been great the last 3 years, but I think him going to a new team could be a new breath of fresh air. I don't know if he's going to be the best performer at the team, but I think him going over there will be honestly really, really great. And again, I'm kind of honestly glad to see that he's trying to make some moves and trying to make some changes in his career. And honestly, I hope he does have success, and it'd be great if he can do really, really well. I hope he can do really, really well, because I think it'd be great, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Sergio Perez. As it was revealed yesterday that Sergio Perez has signed a contract extension with Red Bull, and he will continue to drive with Red Bull Racing through the 2024 season. This, in my opinion, is absolutely deserved. Sergio Perez just picked up his first win of the 2022 season at the Monaco GP, and currently sits third in the Formula 1 points, only 15 points behind his teammate Max Verstappen. So Sergio theoretically has a really strong chance to, at this point still, even after all the chaos that's been around him this year, he has a really good chance to win the F1 championship this year if he can stay in championship form and contention. I think Sergio Perez has been really coming around the last couple weeks as well. And really for the first time since Daniel Ricciardo was with the team, you have a really strong second driver on the team who can be a championship contender if he can open up. And really since joining this team has been really impressive. Yes, of course, he's not won a lot of races with Red Bull, but I think being that second driver who can really show what he's capable of is really amazing. And seeing Sergio be as successful as he's been this year is a great thing. I think Sergio is a really talented driver and a really gifted driver, and he's a guy that really showed his stuff at Indy where they basically became Aston Martin. He's done really good with teams he's raced for, and I think after such a long time seeing Sergio succeed and getting this contract extension, it's absolutely well-deserved. I know a lot of people want Pierre Gasly to go back to Red Bull. I know a lot of people are not happy about that, but it seems like Pierre Gasly is happy that Sergio is continuing to race, which I think is a great thing overall. Because I think a lot of these guys are friends in the paddock. A lot of these guys talk in the paddock. They're good friends, and again, they talking. I think it's just amazing to see that we're continuing to see these teams continue to have guys like Sergio Perez come back and seeing all these drivers continue. So I think it's really, really awesome. I think it's amazing. And again, I'm very happy to see that Sergio Perez is going to continue driving for Red Bull heading into 2024. Again, I think he could be a championship contender. He could win a championship for all we know. And I think having him continue driving for Red Bull Racing is great. And I'm happy to see he will continue driving for Red Bull Racing through the 2024 season, to be honest with you. Now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about Phoenix Raceway. As it was officially revealed yesterday that Phoenix Raceway, once again for the fourth year in a row, they will be hosting the championship race in 2023. Along with that, Phoenix Raceway for 2022 has already had a sellout crowd for the championship race. Considering last year it was only 5 weeks before, we're 23 weeks away, we're still like 23 weeks away from the championship, or 24 weeks away from the championship race right now, and we are already seeing sell-out crowds. This is the 5th confirmed race, as we already talked about World Technology Raceway, that they've had a sell-out crowd, and the fact they've already sold out the crowd for the championship race almost 6 months in advance is absolutely incredible. Now, I want to talk about one thing here. One thing I will say about Phoenix Raceway, look, they've got a great facility, and I think the track does deserve at least a championship race. And my theory is that they're going to keep it. They're going to keep it at the championship race until the TV deal is over. But one thing I do want to say about this, and this is just my opinion when it comes to the championship race, I believe that any track that has the championship race, they should only have one race date. Now, a lot of people are going to think that's controversial, but when it comes to the race, I don't think drivers should have a competitive advantage. They can look at data from last year, and yes, absolutely things can change. When it comes to the championship race, I think any track, and this is the same thing that kind of goes for any track hosted, whether it's Homestead back in the future after this contract's over, or in the future with like Auto Club that they end up getting, because Auto Club, of course, they're going to be turning it into a short track in the near future. I think Phoenix Raceway, though, I mean, do they deserve a season finale? When it comes to the racing, I would say maybe, because again, they've had the trash compound, so it's really hard to say if the track is good or not because of the traction compound. But I think going forward, if we're going to have it as a championship race, I do think one race date is where we go. And honestly, I am hopeful in the future that we can start rotating into different tracks. I think there's a few tracks that absolutely deserve an opportunity. But again, you do also have to look at one thing when it comes to it. You have to look at the climate. We start getting into colder temperatures in November. Now, some areas, like for instance where I live, we were having like 80-degree days in November. Like we were having like really warm days in November, and even December we're having 70-degree days. So temperature can be really different. It can be warmer sometimes than not. But you have to think about different venues in general. For instance, a lot of times you can't be on the East Coast up there. It can snow in November. You can't be really down. You can be down south, but you really can't be up in the East Coast or even the North. Like, for instance, Road America, that's not a track available. So you have to kind of think about what tracks are available. And I think there's a few tracks you can absolutely narrow it down. First one, obviously, is Homestead Miami Speedway, which I think this was really my one track I would love to see at this season finale again. Homestead has always produced great racing. You can use both lanes. It's great racing, comers and goers, and always puts on a good show. I know 2019 wasn't a great race, but that was because he had the high downforce package in 2019, and he had great races in 2021. So there you go right there. Next is when the Auto Club short track comes around. That track is on the verge of coming around here in the next couple of years, and whether we like it or not, I think after 2023, they've delayed the project, I think it will turn there. Next, obviously, of course, you could go back to Atlanta Motor Speedway, but that track, of course, is in colder temperatures, so it's unclear if that'll be available, and it's also Super Speedway now, so you can't do that track. You also do have other tracks that you could do, like down south. Not Daytona, obviously, but I think there's a few tracks you can narrow down right there that you could absolutely run at. To me, though, when it comes to the championship race, I want to see rotated going forward, different racetracks. And again, I got that Phoenix is getting it back to the sellout crowd, and I think it makes sense why they've got it. It makes a ton of sense. They've updated the track. I think for the championship race going forward, one date is where I go, in my honest opinion. It could change, but I think for me, one race date, it's a no-brainer, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Marcus Ericsson. Now, Marcus Ericsson, after winning the 2022 Indianapolis 500, was asked some very interesting questions. And one of the questions asked about that Project 91 car, and basically asked if he is actually interested in racing in NASCAR. And this is an article that was released by Pop Pockers really recently. And he actually says that he has been interested in NASCAR, has embraced American racing like IndyCar and F1, and says he would have to have it clear with Chip first, though, before he decided to do it. But he says he's actually interested in racing in NASCAR. Now, like I mentioned, of course, for a lot of you who are wondering who Marcus Ericsson is, Marcus Ericsson just won the Indianapolis 500 2022. He's a three-time winner in the IndyCar Series. Last year won at Nashville in that really crazy and chaotic race where at one point he literally was up in the air and had a damaged front wing and still somehow won that race. And then he won the Detroit Grand Prix, I think the first or second day of the Detroit Grand Prix as well, with Chip Ganassi Racing. Marcus Ericsson has really come around, has become one of the underdogs, and actually leads the IndyCar Championship currently at the moment after winning the Indianapolis 500. Now, I've been really intrigued to see if a guy like Marcus Ericsson come over. And honestly, I know that he wasn't great in Formula One. We know that he really was kind of used over his head in Formula One. But he's been really great at IndyCar. He's done such an amazing job. And I've been wanting some of these guys from IndyCar to come over to NASCAR. Guys like Marcus Ericsson. Guys, of course, like Jimmy Johnson come back. Tony Kanaan, we talked about earlier. He's been interested. He says he's looking to talk. And we've been seeing more people that are looking to come back. At one point, we last year talked about this rumor that Mark Andretti was going to come and race in NASCAR. There was a rumor he was going to run a couple Xfinity Series races on Stewart Haas Racing. There was a lot of rumors, of course, about, other drivers. James Davison's come over and race in NASCAR. I haven't really seen him much. I think he's competing IMSA at the moment. We've seen him come over and race in NASCAR. Santino Ferrucci, who's talking about, he's kind of talking about maybe doing some NASCAR races this year, just had a great Indianapolis 500. Colton Herta at one point was looking to do the Eldora Dirt Derby a couple years ago back in 2019. We're seeing a lot of IndyCar interest, and I think having that interest is a great thing. And you think about it as well, NASCAR drivers are also interested in racing in IndyCar. Jimmy Johnson jumping over there. You have Kyle Larson, who's been open to running in the Indianapolis 500. You've got Kyle Busch, who's been interested in the 500. In fact, almost ran the Indy 500 in 2017, but because of Joe Gibbs then said no, he couldn't do it. It's amazing to see that you have drivers like Marcus Ericsson's interested. He's not the only one. Julio Castroneves also, we already talked about this, he's interested. Now, where could Marcus Ericsson go if he races in NASCAR? I think it's very obvious to be the Project 91 car. Now, currently at the moment for the Project 91 car, they're only planning to have one race this year, and that's with Kimi Räikkönen at Watkins Glen. But we got a lot of drivers who really want to race in NASCAR. There's a lot of drivers that have been interested in giving NASCAR a shot. And I think that 91 Trackhouse car, that Project 91 car, you could have a lot of different drivers. They're looking to have more races next year. And honestly, Marcus Ericsson would be a great choice to have in there. I would think more likely, I think he'd be great on an oval track. He just won the Indy 500. And he's been successful on all types of forms of racing. And I would not be opposed to having Marcus Ericsson race in NASCAR. I think it'd be great for the sport. I've been wondering if he's going to be interested in doing it. And in all honesty, in all seriousness, if we see Marcus Ericsson in NASCAR, I think it'd be great for the sport. The Indianapolis 500 champion, it'd be awesome. And honestly, I kind of hope and pray that he does consider racing in NASCAR. I think it'd be awesome, and it overall would be amazing for the sport, to be perfectly honest with you. And now we're going to move on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Erik Jones. Now, Erik Jones' future really is kind of in question at the moment with Petty GMS Motorsports. Erik Jones currently has a contract with Petty GMS Motorsports for 2022. And we've been kind of wondering what is going to be happening to Erik Jones after 2022. Well, Erik Jones apparently wants to actually come back to Petty GMS Motorsports in 2023. Talking about his future, there was an article that was released from NASCAR.com. I don't remember exactly who wrote the article, but there was an article that came out from NASCAR.com. JC also posted the article up on their website as well. If you have not read that article, I suggest you do. But he talks about his future, what he wants to do. He really is happy being a Petty GMS. He says this in the article. He says, I mean, it's what, the end of May, almost June? I mean, by late July, August, I like to have something going already for next year. Otherwise, it's not only going to be a burden for me, but it's going to be a burden for the team as well. When you look at Erik Jones so far in the 2022 season has been extremely impressive. And the 43 car has been the most successful it has been, really, in my opinion, since either Erik Rolla got in the car or AJ Allmendinger drove it in 2011, where he nearly made the playoffs. And I think a lot of this is due to Erik Jones' talent. I think this next-gen car has really brought a lot of talent in. But you also look at the RCR cars this year as well. We've seen a lot more competitive RCR cars. And I really think it's the Hendrick and RCR merger of the engines has really played a major factor. Trackhouse Racing has had a ton of success this year. They've had Daniel Suarez being really competitive at points this year and have one of the best cars in the Coke 600. And Ross Chastain has gone on to win 2 races this year and currently sits second in the regular season points, only 34 points behind Chase Elliott. You look at RCR, like I said, Tyler Reddick's been competitive. Austin Dillon's been competitive this year. We've seen Ricky Stenhouse Jr., JT Doherty showing up very recently. And I think that it shows that they're not playing around anymore. But you also look at Erik Jones. Erik Jones has been extremely successful. And one thing I think that this year compared to previous years, Erik Jones does have a sponsor that is committed as well. Focus Factor has been sponsoring Erik Jones for 25, 26 races. And I think if they continue working Erik Jones, I think more than likely he is going to end up back at Petty GMS Motorsports next year. But you got to think about this too. Erik Jones is probably one of the hottest commodities currently in the NASCAR Cup Series when it comes to silly season. And if he doesn't return to Petty GMS Motorsports in 2023, who could potentially be a candidate for him to where he potentially could go? Well, one option he obviously has is the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. Of course, you know at this point the Erik Almirola right now as we speak. We do know that Erik Almirola, we don't know exactly what his future is at the moment. We'll probably talk about his, potentially what it could be in the near future. But Erik Almirola's retiring from full-time, at least going to be not full-time next year in 2023, as he's not going to be driving the 10 car next year. So he's going to be retiring from full-time competition. But it's not a question he's going to be racing. That 10 car is one of the hottest rides available currently at the moment right now. Outside of maybe the Joe Gibbs racing cars, that 10 car is one of the hottest commodities. We know that Ryan Preece is a current favorite to get in the 10 car. You've got our drivers that are being considered potentially. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is being considered. We know that for a fact. We know, of course, that John Hunter is being considered. And I think Erik Jones, another driver, that's really being considered as well. If he doesn't return to Petty GMS, I think that's the right he goes to. But I'm going to come and say this. I do believe that Erik Jones is going to be back in the 43 car next year. Erik Jones has been so successful with the 43 team that it's a no-brainer to keep him. And if not for some of the bad luck, he'd be way in the playoffs right now. There's no question that he'd be in the playoffs right now at the moment. And like I said, we have not seen the 43 car be this competitive in such a long time. That if they get rid of Erik Jones and don't re-sign Erik Jones, because I think they want to keep him, if they don't re-sign Erik Jones, I think that'll be a terrible and it'll be shambles for the sport of NASCAR. Again, I still think more than likely that Erik Jones is going to be back with Petty GMS Motorsport. I'm more than likely thinking he is going to be back. He wants to come back to Petty GMS Motorsports. He really wants to be back with the team. But sponsorship is going to be a key thing. And that's one thing, unlike previous years, that he's going to have. Again, right now he's only got a one-year deal. He probably would like to have longer than a one-year deal. But eventually, I think he also wants to go to a really good team. And I think after 2022, and we go to 2023 for 2024, I think that's when silly season is really going to open up. So I think he will probably get a one-year deal with Petty GMS Motorsports. I'm thinking it's going to be a one-year deal. And I think it really depends on, of course, how successful Petty GMS Motorsports is from this year going into next year and what they end up doing. But if I'm Petty GMS Motorsports, I would be foolish not to keep Erik Jones on my team. Erik Jones has been really successful for the team, and honestly, I hope they keep Erik Jones with Petty GMS Motorsports next season. So, anyway, that's going to be it for today's NASCAR and Long Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on page so I'll list below over that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Do you think Erik Jones will return to Petty GMS Motorsports in 2023 or not? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts on Marcus Ericsson being interested in NASCAR? And would you love to be him to be in a series or not? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have a video kind of talking about and previewing the Worldwide Technology Raceway weekend. I kind of want to get you guys previewed for that and talk about a lot of things around. We've done race picks, but I will probably tell you my picks in that video as well and get you previewed for that event as well. And then Friday, we'll have a NASCAR news video. And then, of course, this weekend, I'm going to be at the racetrack, so I'm going to be doing some vlogging, do some stuff out there. And I, of course, will be having the finishes for the trucks and the Cup Series race out on the channel for you guys to check out. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.